The pandemic has been a great equalizer. It made every socio-economic class vulnerable. The virus itself transcended the boundaries of money, power, race, and development. Millions of people across the world, including world leaders like Donald Trump, Boris Johnson, contracted the COVID 19. But on many levels, COVID 19 widened the narrowing gap of the global inequality between the rich and the poor. According to the International Monetary Fund, the population living in dire poverty before the pandemic was less than a quarter of what it was in 1990. This is the result of growing economies like India and China. But the pandemic pushed back the progress made in decades. An estimated 265 million people might face hunger. Around 100 million people might fall back into extreme poverty. For hundreds of millions around the world, this is nothing less than the Great Depression. Amidst all the chaos, political agendas, economic uncertainties, stock market ups and downs are common people, people like you and me. People who suffered from lockdowns, people who lost their jobs, small businesses, their dreams, and students who missed academic development, learning and structure, and constantly moving between in person and virtual learning, dealing with uncertainties over academic advancement, lack of peer to peer interactions, and so many other chaotic situations. The worst hit were those who lost a loved one to the virus, or those whose health got impacted by the virus and who are suffering the long term effects of the virus. Today, in this episode, we try to bring the pandemic stories of common people from around the world. We'll begin with the story of Hafeez. Hafeez and his father both contracted the COVID 19 and who are presently on the path to recovery. Hafeez is a software engineer from Chennai, India. He and his father both contracted the virus around October 2020.
It was somewhere around the end of October. My father had got first infected. So it all started with him being a dialysis patient already. His BP rose abnormal. It usually stays between 180 to 120, but in the last week of October, after 26, 27, it was around 260 plus. It was stationary at that point. We actually tried by giving a number of BP tablets, but it didn't work out. Then we went to the hospital. While I was accompanying him, I had got infected around the third or fourth day, that is 30th of October. It was on November 1st at which we confirmed that he had, he is tested positive for COVID.
COVID 19 virus is presenting itself differently in different people. Hafiz's symptoms were very different from the symptoms that his father suffered from.
Symptoms weren't the same. I mean, some people used to get sneeze, some people used to get cough, some used to get fever. But here, it all started with elevated BP. We went to hospital. That is where the fever started showing up. But earlier, it was only BP. We had also taken the CT scan for him, and that is where we confirmed that the infection had almost spread in the lungs, and his score was around 18 out of 25, which is very high. And it was November 2nd where I started getting breathlessness. I had a progressive infection where the symptoms were exactly as described by the WHO, or most common symptoms, that starts with the fever, then suddenly your breathlessness starts, and you feel like you're lifting, you're doing a push up, or you've done a 50 or 60 push up together, and then you feel kind of a weight in your chest. That's how it was. And the first thing that we did immediately after that we found positive was we informed our apartment On the other hand, the third or fourth day of my father's, during his course of admission into the hospital, he had started responding positively, and they had given him remdesivir during that point of time. That was the treatment protocol that was followed, and they had also given this Kabasura Kudineer. So that is one thing that Siddha gave us, and it's one of the miracle drinks. So as part of the general protocol, we cannot say what cured the disease, but then he was able to make it through by they were giving a nebulizer a care to him, like 6 to 9 times per day, depend, and then they were able to take out the phlegm. And on the disease front, the breathing started to ease out like around the 10th or 11th day of my quarantine, and the same happened with my father as well. But then his condition was still worse because it was 60%. His condition on the 11th or 12th day, what happened was the fever returned back because side infections or something, and then they had to postpone his discharge, due to which he felt like morally down, because he thought that he'd be recovering sooner, but then the fever had broken him down mentally. So we had to call him and encourage him, and he came out. And after he came out, that is where the actual, he was discharged somewhere around November 20ish, kind of. So he came out that day, and after that we had observed certain changes in terms of our eating patterns. The sense of smell and taste actually took longer to return. I So the smell of onion, or the smell of onion, or smell of certain foods, and if you take some spicy food, it definitely actually created some trouble. The eating habits changed, and we had both lost weight tremendously. And the way we actually breathe, so I felt like a very old man now when I started climbing stairs, like two flight of stairs. I couldn't actually hold my breath. So that is how it was. So that condition stayed till December, and for him it even prolonged. So
It's just a flu, it's just a cold. These are the initial rhetoric that was played over and over again by the administrations across the world. But then, this is the same virus that took away millions of lives, and it is the same virus that made Hafeez, who is in his 20s, feel like an elderly person gasping for breath.
after all this quarantine and everything ended, the post-COVID effect actually struck. So we didn't know this post-COVID effect would be so real. After a month of discharge, my father went under cardiac arrest because of the fluid accumulation. That's what they mentioned. I'm not completely sure of the term. So the fluid accumulation around the heart, so and heart wall. So it had caused cardiac arrest somewhere around December 28th midnight. So that is where we took him to the hospital, and he collapsed in the in the way.
For Hafeez and his family members, the ordeal of long COVID or COVID long hauling continues.
It did cause severe damage to him. So he had actually undergone heart failure. So his ejection fraction was around 35%. So after that, after COVID, this is what is one of the big blows, apart from losing weight, not eating normally.
Hafeez is trying to understand the long term impact of this virus.
I've gone to a couple of doctors to check my gastro system. So because of changes of eating habits, and pain in the stomach that comes when we start eating a little bit of spicy food, and there is a lot of indigestion issues. So we are still facing that, and I mean it is a there is a road to recovery. We still don't know what other effects are. So that is what we are trying to explore. But then definitely it was a test of time.
A test of time, sure it is. And for Hafeez and his family, the ordeal is still on.
More than us suffering, the people around you or people associated with you inside the house, they undergo a lot of problem. People from corporation come and they fumigate the entire house, they fumigate the entire apartment. So it's an inconvenience cost to everyone, but then it is all for safety measures. So and also we were really afraid that my sister and mom shouldn't get affected by this. Imagine an entire family getting struck by this. So it was the only thought in my mind.
Thankfully, his mom and sister never contracted the virus, and Hafeez himself and his father are making a great progress.
If you experience any sort of fever, like more than a day or more than a couple of days, or if you notice some strange patterns in your health or something, please report to your physician immediately, and don't take self medication, and don't go by opinion of people. Immediately visit a hospital nearby and get it checked. So that is what actually saved us.
Yes, please do consult a physician if you feel anything out of normal. Hafiz's story reflects on the victory of human spirit, and we would like to thank Hafiz for providing timely advice when our family was going through COVID-19 crisis. Next on, we present the thoughts of Prajwal, who is a high schooler joining from the state of North Carolina. I started the conversation by asking him what his initial thoughts were when the lockdown was announced in the March of 2020.
My first thoughts is like the experience was really surreal because we were hearing about the pandemic before we had to get out of school. But when we actually heard about it, we were hearing about like Durham County was closing. But then once our school actually closed, it was like, is this really happening? And then we started going to virtual learning. They shifted everything. It was just like a really fast transition to what we were used to.
And did Prajwal see any advantages to the virtual learning?
Well, specifically for me, I feel like the advantages were the workload was a lot less for like all the classes I was taking. If we were in school, we would have a lot more work. And I feel like accessibility to some of the information was easier. Assignments were a lot easier than what they usually would be.
And the negatives?
Well, mainly the negative is in most of my classes, the teacher wasn't actually able to teach. The teacher would like go over some concepts in class, but then most of it was like self-learning. Like we had to read an online textbook or watch videos, and also just not being able to like participate in class and being in that class environment really like deters from your motivation and focus.
Apart from lack of motivation and focus, students also suffered from lack of playing sports as a team.
Well, I don't really play sports, but I feel like for some people it was a really big issue because their parents wouldn't let them go due to COVID restrictions, and it kind of hindered them because they were like depending on sports for their college career, and it like kind of just ruins them.
And Prajwal's thoughts on how America handled this pandemic.
Well, in my opinion, the early stages of the pandemic, America handled it pretty poorly because we just didn't put enough restrictions. Like some countries like New Zealand went under complete lockdown and they were able to control it pretty well. And now they're slowly reopening. There's still some cases here and there, but like I feel like in the beginning stages, we didn't restrict things fast enough. And we didn't stop people from going places without masks. And once at the point when we did get to that point, there was already so many cases and it was just multiplying and multiplying, and people were still going on holidays and things during the summer months because they thought that in the COVID may be like less effective, but didn't appear. But then during the winter months, it slowly went down, and due to new administration, it's also been going down due to that. And COVID vaccine has helped out. Is the major reason why it's been going down.
Prajwal was able to utilize the extra time during the pandemic to prepare for his college. He is also a wonderful chef, and I had the great opportunity to see some of his food creations, and his plating is on par with a seasoned chef. Next we have Nas and Nidhi. Nas is an IT professional and an awesome mom of two adorable kids. Nidhi is an artist and again a wonderful mom of two awesome kids. You can check Nidhi's work at Sakya Online, Sakya online. I started off by asking Naz how she and her family adapted to the changed schedules.
I feel in a way pandemic brought some kind of a sense of calmness in things. I feel it is a busy schedule, but it's not like you are like the other times where you are in the mornings. It's such a rush with you trying to get ready, get to office, getting the kids ready, get them to school, and getting their lunches ready or getting our lunches ready. So it was. I feel it was more. I would say congested than it is now.
And how did artist Nidhi handle the online classes of kids?
My kids started attending virtual classes during the onset of the pandemic. And initially, I thought my younger one, she's 9 now, she needed guidance, but she happily adapted herself in a day or two. So we were back to our normal selves.
Many counties across the United States of America handled virtual learning really well. It was a seamless transition for many students and parents. Did Nas miss the support system that we usually find in India?
Support system that you get back home is something you will always miss. I missed it in the past too. I missed it more in the pandemic. The fact being, in the past, I used to have somebody who could come home and help me with cooking and some basic household things in my busy schedule, right? But due to the pandemic, I did not. There was nobody who could come and do that, of course, because of how everything was locked down.
Health is wealth, goes the adage. It's proved yet again during the pandemic that if physical and mental health are taken care of, this storm is much more easily managed.
I feel that thankfully we all have, I mean, we have very close group here, but thankfully none of us had to go through that situation of maybe somebody is impacted where you really, you don't know what to do with kids, you don't know how to run your day to day, right? So thankfully none of us were in that situation.
Many communities across the United States could keep the virus at bay. But stories of families and friends in India did keep many of us awake in the night.
There has rarely been anybody whom we have met with or our friends, our families where don't have anyone close impacted or gone through a tragedy. So I think that low was the standard, right? I mean, every day waking up and looking at the news of how things are in India, calling up your family 3 times a day to make sure everyone is okay. So that helplessness was always there. Maybe it would have been a little lesser if we were all together.
Nidhi finds a compelling difference between the first and second waves of the pandemic in India. When India was cruising through the first wave of the pandemic, America has seen a great loss of human life. But India was not prepared for what was to come in the second wave.
When the second wave especially started, the first wave, our parents were worried about us. In the second wave, we started getting worried about them.
Both Nidhi's mom and dad contracted the virus. Thankfully, Nidhi's sister was there to take care of them while Nidhi was providing the emotional support needed for them over the phone. Our hearts go out to all the families where the elderly had to face COVID 19 all by themselves while their kids are away from them.
Parents, both of them were infected, and my sister was there. So what I could do was, uh, what I felt was understanding other people's experiences, what they miss most during when they got infected, or when the people were helping them out when they were in quarantine, is communication. And I tried my best during days, during nights. I kept on talking to my sister, to my parents. And then I realized that, the way I am feeling about my parents and my siblings, there are other families too. Just picking up your phone and asking, how are you doing? Do you need anything? What did you do today? Just simple questions like that. They did matter this time.
Live in the moment and make the best of the moment is what Nas thinks is the greatest lesson that we all can learn from the pandemic.
So we saw so many families being shattered. We saw so many dreams being crushed with how this pandemic affected, right? So I feel that though we always knew it and we try to make the best of the moment, I feel that just realization just dawned even more strongly uh, with how things were with the pandemic. And I'm going to practice it more to live in the moment and do what my dreams are, do what I really want to do in life, and not wait for the right time.
After losing so much to the pandemic, let's all make a promise that we will make the best of every day that is offered to us. Next, I asked Anvi, a third grader, to write down what she misses the most about in person school. Here is Anvi reading out what she jotted down.
I love my school and teachers. I like virtual learning. I get more time to interact with my family. I miss certain things about my school, like playing with my friends, recess time bus rides, field trips.
Appreciation is one of the greatest virtues. Next on, we have Aditi reading out what she is appreciative of about the virtual learning, her teachers, and the staff.
I appreciate my teachers, principal, and all the staff who made learning possible from home. I was able to join various clubs at my school virtually and do science projects from my home.
A small prayer for all of us before I take your leave for today. चल चल पुरतो निदेहि चरणं सदैव पुरतो निदेहि चरणं गिरिशिखरे तव निजनिकेतनं समारोहणं विनैव यानम् आत्मबलं केवलं साधनं सदैव पुरतो निदेहि चरणम्, which translates to always keep moving forward. You have to reach the summit. You can't stop midway. Sometimes you might find yourself alone. Even in such circumstances, derive the support you need from your self confidence, but always keep moving forward. Till we connect with you all again, please stay safe and happy. A very big thank you to Hafeez, Prajwal, Nidhi, Nas, Aditi and Anvi, and a very sincere thanks to all our listeners. This is Neelima Idiga signing off for today.